Hey everybody, this video is on factoring with the diamond method. And if you haven't watched all of the Khan Academy videos for week 3, you need to make sure that you go and do that before you start this, because that's going to teach you about some of this stuff that you're going to need to know before you watch this video. So what you're going to learn in this video is you're going to learn about something called factoring, okay? And factoring is the opposite of FOIL. Factoring, again, is the opposite of FOIL. And you should remember FOIL because we did it last week and earlier this week. But just in case you don't, FOIL is a way of multiplying two binomials. And remember, a binomial is something where you have two terms being multiplied by each other. So here we have x plus 7, two terms. So that's a binomial times another binomial, okay? So what we're going to do is we FOIL it, and that means we take the first terms, which is x times x, to get x squared. Then we take the outside terms, x times 2 is 2x. Inside terms, 7 times x gives us 7x. And then last term, 7 times 2 gives us 14, okay? Now we're not done because remember, we have to simplify by combining like terms. So we're going to wind up with x squared plus 9x plus 14. Okay, and this would have been your answer if you were doing foiling, and this is where you would have stopped. X squared plus 9x plus 14. So what we're going to do today, and that's what's going to be a little bit different, is we're going to actually take this term and we're going to break it apart back into the two binomials. So factoring, we start with the finished answer and we figure out what would we multiply together to get that finished answer. Okay, so let's go to a little bit another one of a blast from the past, which you guys also have done in this try, and that's diamond problems. So let's kind of review diamond problems. You have an assignment in OneNote this week about diamond problems that you should have done. So remember that in a diamond problem, you have something that looks like this. Here's your diamond, and we're multiplying two terms together that we need to figure out in order to get the number on the top, and the number down on the bottom, we're going to add these two terms in green to get the bottom number. So what I need to do is I need to figure out what two numbers can I multiply together to get 7. So I can do 1 times 7. And that's all I can do for 7. So I know that my two terms have to be 1 and 7. And then if I want to check my work, 1 times 7 is 7. Check, that's right. And then 1 plus 7 is 8. So check, that's right. Okay. Now another example, just for review of a diamond problem, we're going to come over here now. I've got negative 15 and I've got 2. So how can I get a product of 15? I'm going to not worry about the negative quite yet. Well, if I do 1 times 15, that's going to give me 15. And if I do 3 times 5, that will also give me 15. So let's check this one first. 1 plus 15 is 16, but I'm looking for 2 for my answer here. So I know that this cannot be the right answer. Now, if I put 3 into this area and 5 there, 3 times 5 is positive 15. I'm looking for a negative, so I know one of these has to be negative. And in order to end up with a 2, I know that my 3 is going to have to be negative. 5 minus 3 is 2. Now, the reason we're reviewing diamond problem is because we're doing diamond factoring. So now we're going to come down and take a look at our first example of factoring. Here we have the expression x squared plus 9x plus 18. This is a quadratic expression, and all that quadratic means is that there is an exponent that's squared. So this squared right here tells us that it's a quadratic expression. And now remember, we want to write things in what's called standard form, which means that the highest exponent always goes first, and the number without a variable goes last. Okay. Now, another thing about quadratic expressions is that there's always going to be a letter instead of a number. Or another way to say that is every number is representing a letter. Now here, we know that anytime you don't see a number in front of a variable, we know there's always an invisible 1 or an implied 1. And that we're going to call a. So the coefficient in front of the squared term is a. So we'll say ax squared plus, we've got this number, this 9. 9 is going to be replaced with b. So we could say bx plus this last term is called c. So we have an a, b, and a c. These are really important when we talk about how we are going to do factoring. So when we come down here to the diamond, we're going to take the a term times the c term and put it in this top box. So a term times c term goes in the top box. So I know that 1 times 18 is 18. And then the b term, the b coefficient, just goes into the bottom. Okay, so we've got 18 and we have 9. Now what we need to do is we need to figure out what numbers multiplied together will give us 18. So we know that we could do 1 times 18. We could do 2 times 9. And we could do 3 times 6. Those are our 3 options that we have to get 18. And now we need to figure out which one of these options, if we add the terms together, will give us 9. 1 plus 18 is 19, so that is not it. 9 plus 2 is 11, so that can't be right. But if I take 3 plus 6, I get 9. So I know that there's a 3 and here's a 6. Okay, and you can write it in either way. I could have written 6 in here and 3 over here. That would have been fine. Now, this next part is super, super important. What we're always going to do is you're always going to take these two numbers and you're going to divide them by a. You're going to divide by ax, not x squared, just ax. And what was a? A is 1. So I'm going to divide 3 by 1x, and I'm going to divide 6 by 1x. Okay, now this next thing that we do is kind of strange. We say that we go bottoms up. So we draw an arrow there and write bottom. You don't need to do this. Bottoms up. And so then what we do is we take the variable x and then the number on top, 3, x plus 3. And then on this side, we did 6 divided by 1x. That's going to give us x plus 6. Now, to check our work, if I FOIL these, I should get my answer that I started with, my standard form quadratic expression. So let's see. X squared, let's see, first, that's first. Outside, x times 6 gives me plus 6x. Inside is 3x. And last is 18. Now I have to combine those, x squared plus 9x plus 18. Check. That checks out. So I can say that the factor of x squared plus 9x plus 18 is x plus 3 times x plus 6. Okay, we're going to take a look at 3 more examples. So let's scroll down to the next example. Okay. Now I have x squared plus 10x plus 21. Remember that this, we need to assign our A, B, and C. A, B, and C. Now, I don't see a number in front of the x squared, so that means that it's that invisible coefficient, which we know if there's nothing in front of it, there's always a 1, an invisible 1. So I take A times C, 1 times 21 gives me 21, and B goes down here, so I get 10. Okay, so now I need to figure out what numbers can I multiply together to get 21. Well, I can do 1 times 21. 2 doesn't go into 21. And let's see. I can do 3 times 7. And those are my only options. Now, 1 plus 21 is 22, so that cannot be it. So I know I'm going to have 3 and 7. So now we're going to divide each of those by 1x, bottoms up. So I get x plus 3, x plus 7. I want to check my work. There's no excuse to not check your work here. There's no reason you should miss any of these because you should always check and catch yourself if you get it wrong. So let's see. We have x squared plus 7x plus 3x plus 21, x squared plus 10x plus 21. That checks out. So I can confidently say that the factor of x squared plus 10x plus 21 is x plus 3 times x plus 7. Okay, 2 more examples to take a look at. All right, now so far we've only been dealing with positives. This example is going to pull in a negative, and let's see how that affects it. So we have to assign our A, B, and C's. Remember, A goes there, here's B, and here is C. A is that invisible 1, and we know in the top of the diamond right here, we're going to put A times C, which is 18. The bottom of the diamond, remember, we put B, which is negative 11. You have to remember that this negative here goes with that B value. They go together, just like the positive went with that 18. So you have to bring that negative down, okay? So we have negative 11. So how can we get 18? We saw an 18 before. We can do 1 times 18. We can do 9 times 2, or we could do 3 times 6. 1 plus 18. Now, in this case, okay, we haven't seen one like this today. We've got a negative here, but we've got a positive up here. So that means that both of my terms are going to have to be negative, because remember, a negative times a negative is a positive. So here, 1 plus 18, or negative 1 minus 18, that's negative 19. That's not right. 3 plus 6 is 9. That can't be right. So, but if I take negative 9 and I take negative 2, I get negative 11. So that is my answers that go into my diamond. Now I'm going to divide by 1x. Remember, I'm always using 1 because so far A has always been equal to 1. So I get, remember, bottoms up, x minus 9, x minus 2. Okay, and let's triple check. FOIL first, x squared, outside minus 2x, inside minus 9x, last, plus 18. And if I combine like terms, x squared minus 11x plus 18. Check. So the factor of x squared minus 11x plus 18 is x minus 9, x minus 2. Okay? Last example, example 4. And this is actually the first example or the first problem on your homework assignment that will be posted on OneNote very soon called Lucky Clover. I always want to call it Clever Carrot. Okay, so here we go. X squared plus 13x plus 12. Let's assign our variables A, B, C. A is that invisible 1. We know that A times C goes in this top box. That's going to be 12. The bottom box, we just write our B term, which is 13. Okay, now let's see. How can we get 12? We can do 1 times 12. We can do 2 times 6, or we can do 3 times 4. 1 plus 12 is 13, so that's going to be the one we want. We've got a 1 and we've got a 12. We're going to divide both by 1x. And so we get x, bottoms up, x plus 1, x plus 12. Check your work. X squared plus 12x plus 1x plus 12. Collect like terms. X squared plus 13x plus 12. Check. So I can say very confidently that the factor of x squared plus 13x plus 12 is x plus 1 and x plus 12. Okay. Hope you guys get that. And if you don't, I will be going over this in our second lesson of the week this week on Zoom.